In case you didn't hear yet, yesterday, March 24, 2026, OpenAI killed Sora. It only launched 6 months ago. It hit number one in the App Store within 24 hours, and it secured $1 billion deal with Disney. Now it's dead. The official reason, compute costs. But the real reason could be liability issues. Between deep fakes, public figures, massive copyright violations, Sora became kind of a lawsuit farm. And we saw this with, and we are seeing it now, with a lot of their competitors like Cdance, where you can recreate entire movie scenes and get all of the copyright infringement that you want in a single prompt. This isn't really a technical failure. This is what you would see on LinkedIn called a governance failure. They shipped a product that they knew they couldn't control. This isn't the only one that we've seen. And the market didn't exactly meet the hype in 2025 that it was promised. This triggered a massive industry slowdown. To understand why, you have to look at the 5 phases of business. First come the dreamers, the bankers, the salespeople, the sharks, and the thieves. You probably recognize that from my favorite show, Landman. For decades, we lived with the dreamers. This isn't a new technology. This has been developed since the 50s. And the godfather of AI, Geoffrey Hinton, warned us long before ChatGPT ever hit the market that we can be in some real trouble with technology like this. Then reports like AI 2027 came out. Voices like Tristan Harris started warning us that we're running towards a Terminator situation.
Skynet.
Then the bankers came and they promised smaller workforces, infinite profits, and massive ROIs. But that promise fell flat on its face by the end of 2025. And that was the end of the banking bubble. And now we're entering the sales phase. But this time they're not selling you any magic. They're selling compliance and they're selling governance. These are words that everybody hates, or they used to hate, and now it's all over LinkedIn. They're trending everywhere on LinkedIn. And we're standing between a gap of 2 phases right now. One is, are we going to make course corrections, or are we going to repeat the mistakes of the 2008 mortgage crisis? Back then, we failed to define standards before there was a catastrophe. And we waited for the government to step in, and we learned the hard way that when the market doesn't answer, the government slowly moves and people suffer. So we're seeing a pattern of velocity over verification. And you've probably seen this as well on LinkedIn. It's another one of those terms that are floating around out there. What I mean is, let me give you an example. At Amazon, an ungoverned agent named Kiro deleted an entire production environment because there was no authorization chain. And now in China, if you're familiar with OpenClaw, it's also the same system that had the social media for AI agents. That framework is completely banned now. And it's not because it failed, it's because it worked a little bit too well. And there wasn't a single record of who authorized any of the decisions or actions that were made by these agents. And even Meta and OpenAI are defunding their wisdom layers. They're cutting the safety and audit teams to chase revenue. We haven't seen a lot of money come back from all the promises that were made. And now we're starting to see less investment in smaller companies, smaller AI startups, especially in any type of vibe-coded tools. Meanwhile, marketing on LinkedIn has kind of become compliance theater. Governance now means buy my tech. Human in the loop is code for cancel AI. Safety is really fear-mongering, and compliance is more of a paywall now than anything else. And it's all about getting numbers. According to the 2025 McKinsey Global State of AI report, 88% of companies rushed into AI adoption, but only 6 of them are seeing an actual meaningful return. Recent MIT research goes further, showing that 95% of generative AI pilots are failing to move to production because they lack alignment with actual business workflows. And Gartner has a report out showing that 42% of all AI implementations were completely abandoned in 2025. That's nearly triple from the previous year. These aren't technical hurdles. These are organizations realizing a little bit too late that they built a Ferrari without a steering wheel. On February 19th, I sat with Epoch Times and warned that the most dangerous assumption that we can make with AI is that it can distinguish between real data and adversarial manipulation. One of the business cases that I pointed to was actually Replit from last year. The Replit incident where an AI panicked, deleted data, and then fabricated a ton of records in order to be able to cover its own tracks. If you haven't read that one, look it up. It's pretty good. I warned that in a military situation, this type of failure could cause catastrophes. That was February 19th, and we started seeing a lot of those happen in the coming days. AI is knowledge without wisdom, but that may not be the case for much longer. We've already been told by Elon Musk that we've entered the singularity. And there's been multiple reports that have surfaced, and even the godfather of AI himself recently cited that AI has been caught acting differently when it's being monitored or tested. Now, this could be simple pattern recognition, but it also could be something more, and we've been seeing a lot of folks point to the more. On January 9th, 2026, the government released its AI acceleration strategy. It contains one line that will outlast the memo itself. We must accept the risks of not moving fast enough, outweighing the risks of imperfect alignment. Speed is now the official directive. Alignment is secondary risk, and it must be accepted. When the Pentagon demanded that Anthropic remove safety restrictions for autonomous surveillance and weapon systems, Anthropic refused. They argued that models weren't reliable enough to make lethal decisions. In response, the Pentagon designated this American company as a supply chain risk. OpenAI signed the deal that afternoon. Today, Anthropic is effectively blacklisted from government employees, while OpenAI is being fast-tracked. But when you ban the safe tools, you don't stop the work. You just kind of drive it underneath the ground. You create shadow AI. According to the 2025 IBM Cost of Data Breach report, the average cost of a data breach in the U.S. has hit a record high of $10.22 million per incident. But the kicker is, if shadow AI is involved and its unauthorized use of tools, it's an additional $670,000 per incident on the breach. IBM found that 20% of all organizations suffered a breach last year specifically due to shadow AI, and a staggering 97% of those organizations lack the basic controls for their AI models. By prioritizing speed over alignment, the government isn't just accepting risk. They're subsidizing $10 million liability for every department that decides to move fast without governance frameworks.